Hello and welcome back to another Writerly Wanderings with me, Michael Jex, the author who's out walking along another stream, mainly because it's fun and the dogs like it. So, I started a couple of weeks ago with a little video trying to help people talking about how to get into writing, because I was asked the question about how easy is it to change career and try to make a bit of a career out of writing, which is an appealing concept. So today I thought I'd follow up on that with one of the key elements of trying to become a published author. Now, there are two ways of doing it. One is you just go straight to Amazon, you write a book up, you put it on Amazon as a Kindle story, they publish it, and all of a sudden you're a multimillionaire. No. There are several elements to writing books. Writing it in the first place is dead easy. Anyone can do that. Writing in a form that is actually of a good enough quality for someone to want to buy it is something very different. There's lots of different levels here. There's the initial aspect of getting ideas together for a book, then actually sitting down and writing it. How do you do that? Researching it if you're doing a historical or anything involving something you're not sure about. And then there's the editing, getting a decent cover, because if you haven't got a decent cover that shows up well as a thumbnail, you're not going to sell any copies. And all the other little aspects of life. But I thought, let's just dive in with the second approach, which is trying to get yourself published in a mainstream publisher. Okay, so how do you do that? And the easy approach always used to be people like Colin Dexter. He never had an agent or anything. He sent off his book to a publisher. HarperCollins were absolutely delighted with the quality of his writing and the idea behind his story. And so they bought it. And he never had an agent. He didn't need it. The publishers were really kind to him, never gave him a hard time. And they were generous because he didn't have an agent fighting his corner for him, and so they felt quite happy that they should be fair. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen now. Nowadays, if you want to get into a mainstream publishing house, you have to have an agent. Why? Well, put it like this. When I last spoke to Julia Wisdom, who was in charge of the Collins Crime series, got two dogs going mad here, she was the main editor for all crime books in HarperCollins. And when I first met her in the 1990s, she had a list of about 35 authors. When I spoke to her in about 2003, that had reduced to 17, and she had already been told she had to cut it back again. Trouble is, in the past, there would have been editorial assistants and others employed by the publisher who would have assessed the quality of books. Every summer they would invest money getting in English students of English literature or English language, and they would be used to read through the slush pile that the publishers had gathered together, and they would decide for the editor which books the editor should look at and which there really was no point at all looking at. I'll cover the quality of writing and editing and so on in a later video, no doubt. So these girls almost invariably girls from English courses, would decide on those books. But of course, publishing houses are nothing if not tight-fisted, and so it was very quickly realised that they could have somebody else read the books for them, make an assessment about which ones were worth reading without costing them any money. So instead of using a whole bunch of students, what they did was they stopped using any students and instead relied on agents to do the filtering process. So agents are now pretty much essential. If you don't have an agent, you are very, very unlikely to get any sort of a publishing contract. And there you go, basically. How do you find an agent? Well, the Writers and Artists Yearbook is a delightful mine of information about all the agents you could possibly hope to get. It will tell you the name of all the agents in the UK and America, and you can go through that list and find people who have similar authors to the style of writing you're looking at, and then you can contact them. Now, of course, if you find an agency that has very similar writing to the type of book you're writing, the first thing they're going to do is say, really sorry, but we've already got somebody who does that sort of work and we concentrate on them, so there's no real point dealing with you. Great. So maybe you should look at the agents who have no authors dealing in yours. Let's say you're a romantic historical novelist. You find an agency that's got nothing to do with that. They're all science fiction or modern day crime. So you contact them. The first response is going to be, well, really sorry, we don't handle this sort of work. So it's a minefield. You never know where to go. My advice is always, well, you have to just send your manuscript off to whoever and hope that something about your writing will appeal to them. It doesn't always work, of course. Sometimes your writing just will not appeal. Now let's put aside the one obvious difficult point which perhaps not many people want to confront, but it is a sad fact that some people really are not good at writing. We'll set that to one side for now. Let's just think about, you have a book that is good, you have edited it, you've got a lot of work done on it, it really is very appealing, but you just cannot find an agent to deal with it. Well, basically it all comes down to luck. Now I've made this statement to various other authors, and invariably, I think, they assume I'm saying that because they're successful, they're just lucky and it's got nothing to do with talent, skill or anything else. No, that's absolute bollocks, pardon my French. At the end of the day, there are a huge number of very talented writers who will never get into print. And it is a matter of luck, nothing more. Some people manage to find the right agent. An example I always like is Chris Sampson, C.J. Sampson, wonderful bloke, very sadly missed. Chris was a lawyer down on the south coast of England, and he wrote what he thought was a pretty good book, which he named Dissolution. He wanted to get an agent, he wanted to get a publisher, he didn't know where to go or how. So what he did was, he wrote to P.D. James, Phyllis James, who was a wonderful lady. I met her many times at the Detection Club. Really nice lady. And he wrote to her, and she, being a really nice lady, didn't only write back, she said, yes, send me a copy, I'll have a look through it. He sent her a copy, she looked through it, and she loved it. In fact, she loved it so much, she sent that copy to her agent, who loved it as well, and sent it to her editor. And as a result, Chris got an absolutely vast advance, bigger probably than all of the advances I've been given in my writing career in 30 years. And he was a very successful writer from that moment. There are many other writers, I am quite convinced, who would have been as successful had they hit someone as kind and generous as Phyllis James, P.D. James, or if they had been as fortunate as to get recommended to a very mainstream agent who was known and recognised by the publishing industry. Now, this is the trouble, you see. Publishers are now saying, you agents have to come to us with something that's new and novel and will sell very well. The agents now are the gatekeepers to the publishing industry. Which is fine, but that means every time an agent puts a book forward, I very nearly fell flat on my face then, just stumbling over a stone. Every time an agent puts a book forward to a publisher, it's their reputation on the line. If they put forward 3 or 4 really duff books, their career could well be over. So you have to bear in mind that when you're putting your book forward, it has to be the very best version you can possibly give to that agent before it even gets to a publisher. Now, my first book, I wrote 3 books in 3 months. Now, these were not high quality writing books. These were books which I hoped might get a certain amount of interest. I thought they were pretty good. An agent saw 3 of them, refused 1, and she did accept 2 of them. She gave me a bunch of tasks to fulfill. I fulfilled them. Basically, it was giving me 2 weeks to make some amendments. And at the end of 2 weeks, she accepted them. I got a contract in the next 6 weeks. That is now quite rare, but it can still happen. I should just say, obviously, that she was a lady of great skill at spotting brilliant new authors. But no, she was just basically a good, hard-working lady. How did I find her? Well, I went through the Writers and Artists Yearbook, and I discovered that every agent there said, in the first instance, send us 2 sample chapters and a full synopsis. Now, I was an ex-salesman and trained as a salesman. I didn't want to do that because that meant delay and difficulty. So instead, I looked down and found all of those who gave a phone number. And one of them said, contact me. She was obviously very new to the business and didn't know what she was doing. So I tried to phone her, I forget how many times, but over 4 days, a lot of times, and every time the phone was engaged. In the end, I looked at the opposite facing page of the Writers and Artists Yearbook, and there I saw a lady who was called Jane. And I thought, my wife's name is Jane. I won't forget her name. Of such nonsense are careers made. So I phoned up Jane. She expressed some interest. I went to visit her, delivered some copies of the books. We had a nice chat, came away, did 2 weeks worth of work on 2 of those books, went back again, and at that meeting she said, well, I don't have written contracts. Anything we do is based on trust. I quite like you, so this is the deal. And we ran through various aspects of what an agent would do, what I would do, And that was that. So, 15 minutes worth of me talking. And what's the conclusion? The conclusion is you need to have an agent. To find an agent is a matter of luck. To go further than that, and sorry, just having to shout at the dogs. To go further than that, if you find an agent who wants to take you on, that's a matter of further luck and good fortune. And then, of course, the next stage is finding a publisher. Well, I hope that was interesting. I hope it was moderately useful. The main takeaway from it is there's a lot of luck involved. Don't panic if at first you don't succeed. Keep on going. J.K. Rowling was rejected, so was Terry Pratchett. Basically, it takes time to get yourself established. But if you find that useful, please hit the like button, add any comments or questions you've got down the bottom. Why? Well, because I can see whether it's worthwhile continuing with this series by the number of people who actually look and watch and make comments. Quite straightforward, really. Anybody who's got any questions, please drop them down the bottom, because I will be trying to figure out what it is that new or aspiring authors want from a series of videos like this. And apart from that, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.